Good afternoon and welcome back. I'm Gina Spagnola, President and CEO of the Galveston Regional Chamber of Commerce, and we are so happy to have partnered with the Daily News. Hey, Michael.
Hi, Gina.
Michael's doing a phenomenal job at this. Watch out, you guys. Maybe doing this instead of that print, right? No, but thank you so much. We're actually with our District 2 candidates. If you've joined us all day, you'll know that we started off with the mayoral race, went to District 1, and now we've got two incredible community people that are running for District 2. You're going to learn a lot about them. And Michael, did you want to add anything?
No, I just can't wait to get started here. We've had two good sessions
Really nice.
before, and I think it's been a real good event, so let's get it going.
Yeah, and just a quick thank you to C-Star Base Galveston for allowing us to use this massive room that's very safe for our candidates coming in here and for us and the videographers. And so thank you so much. If you haven't been to this beautiful facility, come out. Without further ado, we're going to start with our candidates. They drew numbers 1, 2.
We should remind people,
Yes.
though, that there are 4 candidates
Yes.
for this race. 2 were unable to attend. J. David Robertson and Norman Buckley?
Buckaloo.
Sorry about that. We're not able to attend. But we've got 2 good ones, and let's get rolling.
Yeah, and we appreciate your time.
Yeah,
Thank you so
for
much.
coming.
And for your 2-minute introduction, go ahead and go, Ms. Bass.
Hello, my name is Pam Bass. I'm a candidate for District 2 City Council, and I wanted to thank the C-Star Base for allowing us to have this session at this beautiful location. I've never been here before, but it's certainly beautiful. And I want to start out also to wish Bo Roger Quiroga, I always mess that up, a speedy recovery. He's having a medical procedure today, and he's running for mayor, and I wanted to wish him a speedy recovery. You might ask, why are you doing this? And people ask me that all the time. Why are you doing this? You're retired, you don't have a job to go to. Why are you tying yourself down to this? The reason why is because there was a need for representation, not only in District 2, but the city of Galveston. And so I decided that I would fill that need. The roads need to be fixed. The drainage needs to be fixed. The city hall needs to be fixed. The code enforcement needs to be fixed. Taxes keep going up. And so I'm hoping to be part of the solution, if I'm elected, to some of those problems. However, this is a beautiful place to live. You couldn't ask for a better place to retire to. And that's all I have to say for my introduction.
Schuster?
All right, good afternoon, everybody. My name is William Schuster. I'm running for City Council, District 2, here in Galveston. I'm a lifelong resident of Galveston. Just like Ms. Bass, we get asked all the time, why are you running? Why do you want to do this thankless job? Why do you want to do this volunteer job with the hours, the hard work? And the bottom line is I generally have an outright love for Galveston. I want to focus mainly, and you hear multiple candidates saying it, on our quality of living for our residents here on the island. And when you think about that idea, you look at our neighborhood improvements that are needed, especially in District 2. You look at the basic things that any council candidate is going to want to address, whether it be drainage, whether it be signage, whether it be street, alley repairs, lighting. Those are the basic things that we all want to accomplish and what's needed in District 2. But what candidates, and myself, I'm throwing myself out there, which candidates have bigger ideas, that have visionary ideas, that can bring great paying jobs here on the island, who can bring affordable housing, here on the island, that can make it livable and make, a generational thing where we raise Galvestonians, we have an increase in our population to relieve the tax base. I think if you focus on those quality of living items, everything else falls into place. One of the greatest things Galveston has is its diversity, whether it's our people, whether it's our economic base. Well, with COVID, and that's I'm thinking that's what majority of what we're dealing with today in our forum, with COVID happening in March, my message is still the same, but it's how can we diversify and how can we change having to deal with this? You know, when we look at our economy, you know, look at our port, diversification there. We have 65% of our, you know, port was cruise traffic. The port shut down, you know, as far as cruise traffic goes until I think it's the end of October, you know, so what are we doing there to bring diversification there? You know, that was an issue before COVID. So how are we handling as a community on top of doing all these needs? Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're going to start with the first question, and we'll start with you, Ms. Bass, and then we'll start rotating. Okay? So thank you so much. You've both touched on it a little bit, but what are the most important issues the most important issues that you see that are facing Galveston today, and what is your plan to and how to address them? The two most important issues in Galveston, Ms. Bass, and then you'll go first.
I think one of the most important issues is for all of the residents of Galveston to feel like they're part of the community and their voice will be listened to. That's one of the reasons why I'm running. Not everybody feels like they're a part of the community. They don't seem to think they matter to the people in City Hall. And I'm one of those people that got that kind of treatment at City Hall. And that's another reason I'm running. The infrastructure, the flooding, the streets, and I'm in District 2, and from what I understand, there was a neighborhood improvement project that I never knew anything about that was supposed to be $500,000 a year from the IDC money pot to fix streets and curbs and wheelchair ramps, handicap ramps on the curbs. I never saw anything in my neighborhood being fixed. And I don't know where it was going on, but this city council this year or maybe not this year, but in their term, this last 2 years, voted to discontinue that fund. So from what I understand, all the city council members have to vote to approve any improvements that you want in your district. And this fund should be re-implemented, in my opinion. I don't know, did I give 2 answers?
No? Very good, thank you. Schuster?
I could talk on and on.
Well, for me, I think the 2 biggest issues facing Galveston, moving from March when we had the appearance of COVID on the island, still I think that need in our neighborhoods is still there, where we look at drainage, we look at infrastructure, you see all those needs that are still there. But going back to what I was saying in my opening statement, diversification in our economy is huge. You know, how can we deal with COVID? Not only that, but our tourism industry as well. You know, diversification in that, because when our beaches were closed, we had upwards to 150,000 people still on this island with closed beaches. So to me, it seems maybe we might have been putting too much emphasis on our beaches. The beach demand will always be there. You know, we have some of the beautiful most beautiful beaches in Galveston or in the coast, but it's always going to be there. So what are we doing to attract, I guess you could say, more lucrative tourists, or diversifying, you know, the type of tourists we're bringing on the island? You know, do we want this day tripper, or do we want to have people here that are going to spend multiple days, spend money on our island, spend money and time in our downtown district? You know, and that's my goal. So really, when you look at it, the needs of the neighborhood and diversification of our overall economy in dealing with today's times. That's all I got.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Schuster, I think you're fielding my question first too, and it is describe District 2, not necessarily the geography, but the character and personality of the district, and give us a summary of what the challenges and opportunities you see there.
Okay. It's, in my opinion, looking at District 2, the challenges, it's a lot easier to start there. I think the challenges that you see, of course, our neighborhood needs. You look at our neighborhood improvements. You look at our housing needs even. You know, how are we incentivizing, you know, housing improvements? How are we incentivizing home home ownership? You know, so there's that need inside of District 2, the challenges we see, all the infrastructure demands. Now, the opportunity, I see District 2 as the heart and soul as far as our residential area in Galveston. It's, you know, pretty dense, the population. You have generational Galvestonians, people that have worked at the port their whole life. Their grandparents were longshoremen. They had that house. So you see that in the Galveston neighborhood in District 2. But I also see opportunity for people to move into some of these old houses, buy them, get an incentive program with the city going, give them a home improvement tax credit. You know, how can we increase the home ownership? I think that's a great opportunity in District 2. And what type of economic development we can get in the neighborhood as well. You know, whether we do multi-use houses where we've got the business on the bottom, upstairs it's, you know, residential. I'm all for that in District 2. You know, utilizing the most space, or the, you know, getting the best use out of our space is crucial in District 2, especially on the island.
Ms. Bass?
2 is a residential area mostly. It's diverse. The streets are bad, and they need to be fixed. The taxes keep going up, which prevent people from wanting to come here, wanting to move here. A lot of people will move to a town where the taxes are low, or at least reasonable. Well, the taxes have just recently gone up again. And I think, I might be getting off the subject here, but the taxes need to be looked into because of wasteful spending at City Hall. And why does the city keep getting sued over these 45th Street debacle and the baseball field over there, the Crockett Field? I never see anybody playing baseball over there, but the city got sued on that too. So our taxes are going up to pay these lawsuits. Another thing I brought up a minute ago to somebody is people keep saying, what about affordable housing? What about affordable housing? Well, a lot of the houses that would be considered affordable housing are vacation rentals, single-family houses that are vacation rentals. And I own 2 myself, so I know people do buy these old rundown houses, which I have done myself, and fix them up and make them into vacation rentals. But that's where all the affordable houses are going, is the single family. Of course, there's apartments and condos, but the single family houses are being turned into vacation rentals that could be affordable. And then there's another idea I came up with. Oh, okay. Had a good
Well, I
idea.
think very good. Thank you. It goes by quickly, doesn't it? I think you've just sort of answered this next question, but what is your position on the tourism industry in general and short-term rentals? And we start with you this time.
Okay.
Yes, Ms. Beth.
The tourism industry is wonderful. I sure do welcome the tourists to my vacation rentals. However, I want to throw this in while I'm at it. I shut my vacation rentals down as soon as they told me to. I have followed the rules of the city, state, to close it down. And even when they said open it up, I still didn't. My vacation rentals are still closed. And that's just my choice, because I don't want to have to go in there after somebody's been there that might have had coronavirus. Mm-hmm. So my vacation rentals are still closed. I bought rundown houses and fixed them up. That's what I do. That's what I like to do. In fact, during the coronavirus, I gutted and renovated an old farmhouse that passed the time. I stayed in the house for 2 months, like they told us to. The tourists are the lifeblood of Galveston. I love the tourists. I don't leave town when the motorcycle rally comes, because usually I have people staying in my rentals and I have to be close by. The vacation rentals, people buy those that are all run down, and they do improve the neighborhood. And they do increase the taxes because they're valued higher. What's the rest of the question?
I think you've answered it. Thank you. It was just about whether you supported short-term rentals.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
And
I
I'm
support
assuming you do.
short-term rentals.
Thank you. Very
I
good.
think they're a value to the community.
Mr. Schuster?
I believe the first part was
Just tourism
Okay.
industry.
Just going back to what
Explain.
I've been mentioning earlier, I'll answer the first part. With tourism, I think as far as, the diversification in our tourism industry, I think really the new buzz is sports tourism. I'm a big fan of that. Me being a coach my whole life, I'm a big fan of sports tourism. You can look at the Ironman that we host here in Galveston every year. Well, unfortunately, we weren't able to this year, but that brings so much more money to the island as far as tourism goes versus that day tripper that's coming in for the day. They might go to Walmart, buy $100 worth of gear for the beach, then they go out to the, umbrellas and chairs for the day. So the city's really not collecting that much revenue versus that triathlete who comes, they stay a week, so we're collecting hot tax off of them. They go out to eat, so we're collecting sales tax there, and they're here for a week. And a lot of them do stay, and what I'm about to get into, the short-term rentals. They like to stay at the home. It gives more of a neighborhood feel. Now with short-term rentals, it does need to be regulated, one, to where there is a sense of regulation in the community as far as, if I've got party goers out on the porch till 3 a.m, what consequence is that for the short-term rental owner? Because that's one of the biggest complaints that we get as far as, that I hear is parking, from the short-term rentals. Then you've got the issue of noise, then you got the issue of trash. So how are we holding the owner accountable for that? And as far as going back to the short-term rentals as well, making sure also that we are having them regulate as far as paying their fair share into hot tax and to make sure that the city is collecting those fees properly. That's all I have. Thank you.
I think you're up again for
Okay.
me. Ms. Bass touched on this a little bit, but I wanted to follow it with, what do you think about the property tax rate? And if you think it's too high, where would you propose cutting in services, programs, people? What would you do about it?
See, here's the issue that Galveston faces is not necessarily the highest tax rate in the county, but it's our tax appraisals as what is really the biggest thing that impacts us here on the island. Now, if there's ever an opportunity to cut taxes, a vote for it, finding the way, then I'm all for it. Last resort should be a vote to raise taxes. As for me in Galveston, it's hard for me to think as a teacher here on the island, I own my home, and what that could cost our family and an increase in taxes. So I get that. Now, what can we do to look at the budget? Of course, there's got to be ways that we can kind of cut things here and there if it ever gets to a point where we need to. But I think our tax rate is okay. Now, I would like to work with our state legislators and, with our county as well to what can we do for our appraisals here on the island, because those seem this last year to have gotten a little bit out of control. I think I was fully taxed at what I could be as far as appraisals, so we're now having to pay that increase. So any chance we can to cut, I'm all for it, and then working with our state and county on how we can fix these appraisals.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Bass?
What was the question?
What do you think of the property tax rate? And if it's too high, where would you propose to make cuts? And what programs, what services, and people?
Of course, I think it's high. And the current city council just raised it again. And so I always hire somebody to fight my tax rate or property tax. I want to say this. I don't mind the tax rate being raised if the money goes to the police. Our first responders, the police need to be taken care of. They don't need to be defunded as we hear all over the country right now. I don't mind my taxes being raised if they're spent, the money is spent in a good way. And one of the ways is the police. They need to be taken care of. I think that the salaries at City Hall need to be looked at. I think they're way out of line. This is supposed to be a $50,000 population here in Galveston. But when the tourists come, then it might be like another 100,000. So we do need the money to take care of the tourist issue. I'm just all for the police, and I think they need more money, and I don't mind paying more taxes if it's spent right.
Thank y'all. You still have a little bit of time? Are you good? So my question, we'll start back with.
I don't know if I
You did.
went off track or not.
No, you're
Usually
good.
I do.
As you know, we've had a long relationship with the Daily News. They were, established in 1842 and the Chamber in 1845. Of course, our mission is promoting and advocating for business and community development, and we represent almost 800 businesses. 75% of those small businesses. If you were elected and sitting on council and there was something before you that was going to adversely affect the business community and their ability to do business, how would you approach that decision?
Is it me?
I think you go first now.
I would contact the Chamber of Commerce.
That is always the appropriate answer. I'm just wanted to say. That is a great answer. But yeah, talk
Because
about that and why.
That question was brought up at the first interview session we had in March. And it was something about the dumpsters downtown, and they didn't get notification until it was already done, and the businesses were affected and nobody told anybody. And from what I figured out is the Chamber of Commerce wants to be told when there's important decisions like that are coming down the pike. And I told, I think it was Miss Patton at the time, that I would make sure that the Chamber of Commerce would be involved, because the Chamber of Commerce is the businesses and they should be involved. And again, like I said, I'm retired, so I have time to devote to this job. And I'm looking forward to it. I hope people will vote for me. I know this is my closing statement, but
It's not your closing yet.
it's okay.
Not
I
your
can
closing.
close in the middle.
Nope, can't close. Don't close yet.
Okay.
Mr. Schuster, same question.
Well, me being in the public sector my whole life, I'm not a business owner. I live in Galveston though my whole life, and I understand the importance of our business community, especially our small businesses here on the island. And I understand the importance of entrepreneurship that we have here on the island as well. I look at our chamber as our stakeholders as far as the business community goes. And I don't know how you can have economic decisions regarding businesses without their input. I mean, if it kind of goes without saying, we have a Chamber of Commerce for this reason, and I don't know why we would take a moment not to consult the chamber. And I look forward to getting elected. I look forward to the extra work that's been asked, can you handle? I do. I mean, I've been my whole life in the public sector. Communication is one of the biggest keys of being in education. So I'm open to that communication, especially open communication, and I'm looking forward to expanding that communication to the chamber.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Schuster, I think you're up for my question too, and it is, both of you have touched a little bit on the challenges of housing in Galveston, and especially in the traditional neighborhoods. So let me ask you this. What can or what should the city do to help promote creation of middle income or workforce housing on the island?
Thank you. That's a good question. Bottom line, it's basic. If you work here in Galveston, you should be able to afford to live in Galveston. That is one of the #1 goals that I have here on council, because working here in the district, or working here in Galveston, I've noticed so many people leave the island and they quote the affordability of the island. It just hands down, you can go to Lamarck, buy a house, you can go to Dickinson, you can get more square footage for the cost. So a lot of that goes back to how are we increasing the quality of living for those of us that are here. But as far as getting more people on the island, that's another big part of my goals here on council. One of the things I think doing in that is, how can we improve home ownership? So if you want to improve your home, one of these houses in District 2, I was part of it in 2013. I did a home incentive program with the city and county, got my historical home fixed up. Now I'm paying the increase in property value over the years, and I think that's win-win for both of us. Now, when we look at bringing more affordable housing, I think if you work in Galveston, you should have that option to be able to afford a house here in Galveston. I'm going to use Galveston College, what they did with their student housing by Galveston College. I'm a big fan of that housing. I'm a big fan of the city subsidizing that type of housing for our workforce, for our employees of these great businesses we have. And I'm really in favor of having that housing and utilizing open space here on the island. Because like I said, if you work here, you should be able to live here, no questions asked. Now, buying a home right off the bat, that's hard for a 22, 23-year-old, but we still should have that option to what they can do here on the island, where they can live.
Thank you. Ms. Bass?
Well, my answer to that is, I gave it some thought after that first interview session because I've been studying ever since. And I read something in the paper where somebody sent in a comment that says, during this COVID shutdown, maybe some of the candidates need to study the issues. And I thought, are they talking about me? But so I did study. I've been studying. And I'll keep studying, and I like to keep learning. I learn every day something new. But I remember Robert Zahn, he was the president of the Galveston Association Realtors, came up with a suggestion, which I thought was really good after I thought about it, where somebody buys a house for $100,000, puts $150,000 in it, and then it's worth $250,000. Then they should, as the incentive that we're talking about, maybe they could, they put their $150,000 in it. Maybe they could not have to pay taxes on $250,000 maybe for 5 or 10 years. That's an option. I thought that was a great idea after I thought about it. And then also there's this situation called TERS around here that a big developer will come in and develop a certain area, and then they put all the money into the infrastructure, and then they don't pay taxes for like 10 years, except for the base price of what they paid. And so that's an idea, like a TERS-like thing for the people to be able to afford to come here and live. But not all people can buy a $250,000 or $300,000 house. So some people will have to live off the island for a while. It would be nice if everybody could live here, but I'm thinking what Robert Zahn said and the TERS idea might be an idea for the affordable housing in Galveston. And I have been doing my homework.
Thank you. We'll go back to you.
Okay.
Stas. How would you approach this fall and winter season that depends upon special events and groups to maintain tourism business through these lean months, and with COVID still very much in play? And how do you look at those, I guess, those big events? You've got the motorcycle rally, which has been canceled and things like that. But how do you see us getting through these next months?
It's going to be rough.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be rough for everybody. The people that live here need to support their local businesses, which I do. I love to eat out, and either I'll go in or I'll get it to go. So I've been supporting the local businesses, and it's going to be rough. People are going to have to tighten up their belts for a little while. I'm going to miss the motorcycle rally. I put my earplugs in and I stay here. I'm going to miss Mardi Gras and Dickens on the Strand and all those things. Oktoberfest, I love Oktoberfest. I'm going to miss that. I'm missing the cruises. But, this is hopefully a once-in-a-lifetime event that we're not going to have to go through again. And everybody seems to be doing a good job of wearing their mask and staying the distance, washing their hands. And they're saying they're coming up with a vaccine by
hopefully
maybe before Election Day. And, of course, the first responders and the old people and things like that, of course, I fit into that old people category, which I want to say something about that. I watched the old interviews, And I want to tell James Casey, I'm 70 years old, but I'm not sitting on the front porch in a rocking chair. So I know he didn't mean anything by it, but I've still got a lot to give. This town is wonderful, and I think we can all pull together and get through this crisis.
Very good. Thank you. Just ideas of getting through the lean months. You know, typically we've got those big events coming up and everything, and if council, if you were looking at that, how do we get through those lean months? And I mean, you wouldn't be that until November, until it's almost over, but just ideas of leading us through this really hard time, difficult time for everyone.
No, you're right. And it reminds me, since March, it feels like the hurricane without the storm, really.
Yes.
You know, that's the biggest feel that I get. It feels like Hurricane Ike without the damage, you know, if that makes sense. Obviously, the number one priority for us in government at any level is the protection of our residents and of our people. You know, whether that's health guidelines, whether that's public safety, that is our number one job that I feel as elected official, is to take care of our people. Now, as far as making up for these festivals, it is going to be rough. I mean, we're looking at a 30-year low in sales tax. You saw that council meeting. It is rough. It's no way to sugarcoat it. And I think, though, this is what really will allow us, what I've been kind of harping today, is give us a better chance to diversify our economy, diversify our tourism industry, you know, bigger ideas of what we can do as far as marketing the island. You know, do we need to form economic task force with the sole purpose of promoting this sole business or promoting this type of business? You know, it all goes back to marketing. It all goes back to what we need here on the island as far as our business community and our workers and, you know, our community as a whole. So that's kind of what I've got for that.
Okay, so kind of keep following that theme on large events, and maybe not an issue much this year, but looking into the future, we all hope, you know, that the situation will change. And so the question is, how would you rate the city's management of large events, like the motorcycle rally and even like the slab car events and all the big events that happen? And if you think that management needs improvement, what would that improvement entail?
Am I up on this one?
Yes,
yeah,
I believe so.
Okay, so you brought up two good points there. Slab Party seemed a little bit as an unofficial event. We obviously weren't issuing permits there at the city, so it seemed a little more unofficial. So really, how are you handling more unofficial events on that one, it seems like? So, you know, having the available staff on hand, if we have the notification, do we need all hands on deck as far as our police, fire, you know, beach patrol? You know, we need those things on deck, you know, to make sure that obviously our residents are safe and our visitors, you know, during that time period. But with our official events, I think the city, promoting wise, has done a good job. I know, you know, Biker Rally brings in over $100 million to the local economy. Mardi Gras, first weekend's always a great time for residents. Second big weekend, everybody's down on the Strand. It's a great time. Diggins on the Strand, it's a beautiful festival. I love, it's one of my favorite. It brings people to our historical aspects of the island, gets them more involved in our culture, what we have to offer. So I think these events are great. And let's say we live in a world with no COVID next year, then yeah, I'm all for promoting these events, these cultures. Now, in saying that, and this might be a question moving forward, COVID's never going to go away.
Right.
Like, I feel like it's going to be like the flu. It's going to be like, you know, whatever virus is out there, it's never going to go away. So how are we going to deal with it public health wise and dealing with it on top of these festivals? So that's really kind of, I think, the two issues that we need to deal with as far as festivals go.
Thank you.
I'll try to remember what the question was.
I'll read it again if you'd like.
Okay, thank you.
If I can find it on here. How would you rate the city's management of large events? And everything from the slab cars to Mardi Gras to the biker rally to concerts on East Beach, all of them.
What's a slab car?
Well, it's kind of complicated to explain,
Well,
but it's a big event.
Okay.
And if you think that management needs improvement, what would the improvement entail?
I think the city's managing those events very well, along with the park board and the convention center.
Visitor,
Bureau.
CVB, yeah.
In fact, I went to the gun show last weekend just so I could support it. even though I was like a fish out of water. I didn't know what I was doing, but I supported it. I went to it, paid my $9, and went in there. Okay. I think the city handles the events very well. I'm all for closing the streets for Mardi Gras because we don't need cars running up and down the street when there's families and kids and everything. And of course, the motorcycle rally is not closed. Dickens on the Strand is closed. The city is handling that very well, I think. I don't know if I would change anything of how they're handling the festivals. And I think the park board is doing a great job.
I want to clarify something to those watching. I'm not sure that Dickens on the Strand has been canceled. I have not received that. Have you received that word?
I think I read it in the paper that it's
been
canceled because everything else is. And
okay, I might have missed it, but I just check to see because I've not heard an official announcement that Dickens in particular has been closed. So keep your eye out because if it's on, we want you there. Okay, thank you so much. I know, always pushing Galveston. We need you here. We kind of alluded to this earlier in a question about your district and everything, but what was it about your district? What was that one thing that made you think, I got to get in this. I got to get in this race. And I think even further, like 2 years, if you had a 4-year term, that you look back and you think, all right, that's it, I did it. But what was that turning point? What was that thing that made, because you both have really wonderful lives. You know, you don't have to do this, like you said. Was that one thing that you could feel, if I could do that, I would be serving my constituents well? And you're going to be talking to them.
Me?
We start with, who spoke last?
She did.
You did, yeah.
Oh,
We're
okay.
starting back with you. That one thing.
Well, I've been thinking about it for years, but we had an incumbent in there for 6 years that was doing a good job. Of course, like I said, I didn't see any improvements in my particular neighborhood. And then he termed out, so I decided now was the time. I had the time. I'm retired. I can take the time. I can handle constituents' issues and take them to City Hall and get them worked out. I feel like I've not been listened to at City Hall. I've been ignored. I've had some legitimate issues myself that I took to my city councilman, and then nothing got done. And then I talked to the city manager. I talked to city attorney. I couldn't get anybody to help me. So I thought, how many other people are being treated like this and ignored? And I thought it was my time to step up and serve my community. And of course, this term is now going to be 1.5 years instead of 2 years. So if the voters want to take a chance on me, give me a try for 1.5 years. If I don't do a good job, then vote me out. That's all I can ask. But the voters will be happy with what they get. I'm a hard worker. The people that know me know that I know how to get the job done. When I start a job, I finish it. And if, as my sister always said, if it's worth doing it all, it's worth doing right. And that's my philosophy. That's why I got into it. I think I can do a good job. I think the other candidates can do a good job, but I think I can do a better job. Thank you.
Mr. Schuster?
Well, for me, it came down to, you know, I can think back to August when I started officially thinking about running. And for me, one, I've lived in my house my whole life. It's my grandparents' house, so I've seen I see the potential of what Galveston can be. I see the needs of what we do need in the neighborhood, you know, and I think as far as me wanting to run, really it was to also show the importance of your local government. I mean, with this election being moved to November, in my opinion, your local elected officials are the most important. It's the most important election in your community. You know, having that access to your local government, it's your direct community link. It's your direct link to, you know, the changes that you want to see in your immediate surrounding. So for me, it's just having a candidate that's willing to do that, you know, that extra work, that's willing to communicate with their people and actually knows how to do that. You know, as far as the city council, you have these ideas, you have these, you know, policies, you have this vision that you want to do, but it's how can you get it out to your constituents, especially in this time period where the digital world is more crucial than ever, whether it be Zoom, newsletters, you know, PowerPoints, presentations, you know, whatever you got to do to get, you know, that transparency, that openness out there. And for me, it's because I love Galveston. I'm never leaving. I have a visionary, you know, as far as making Galveston not only the best place to live on the Gulf Coast, but because of that, it should become a great place to visit as well. So, and that's really the heart of what I'm behind. So, thank you.
I love that you've lived in your house your whole life.
Well, you know, it's
so
it's a generational thing. My grandparents bought it in 1947. I inherited it through the family. I've grown up on that street, that neighborhood, and I just love it. You know, I don't ever see us leaving unless I got to check our Powerball tickets from this last weekend, so I got to. No, I'm kidding.
Then you might go to another house, but save that. You'll still have that.
Exactly. No, it's never going to leave the Schuster name.
Oh.
So.
Well, get a quick sip because you're up next.
Sorry, yeah.
Y'all okay?
Oh yeah.
So I'll wind up on this one so you can get ready. So this is not really something that a city council member would have direct influence over, but you've alluded to it, and a reader posed this question, and I think it's a good question. So, do you think the system of assessing property values is fair? Does it ensure that commercial and residential taxpayers are carrying equal burdens? And if not, what are your ideas about reforms?
Well, I mentioned it earlier. The biggest thing is just working with the CAD, the Central Appraisal District, and really figuring out an acceptable level of evaluations and raises in property values for our families here on the island. It feels that to keep up with inflationary demands, it feels that there is an arbitrary demand to always increase that property value over the years. So if we can work with our legislators, work with our county to help the need, and I'm all for it. You know, and of course that goes back to finding ways to keep our tax rate low or to lower it, you know, or finding ways to vote against a tax increase. And I think all those things mixed together can basically free up a little money in our housing issues.
All right. Yes, ma'am. Do you think the system of assessing property values through the Central Appraisal District is fair? Does it ensure, for example, that commercial and residential taxpayers are carrying fair burdens, and that there's some argument among even state lawmakers that commercial property tends to be undervalued and maybe residential property overvalued? So the question I'm posing to you, even though it's not something that a city council member can really directly influence, the city could perhaps lobby and influence. But if there are reforms to be made in the way that property values are assessed in Texas, do you have any ideas about what those would be?
Well, I'm a firm believer of protesting taxes, which I do every year. I do every year. I hire somebody to do it. That gives them a job. I don't like the idea that the appraisals are based on a sales price instead of value. That needs to be looked into. And I mentioned this at that first interview session we had, that the sales price of a house that's purchased in the MLS, the multiple listing system service, might list one price and list a different price for the same house if it's paid for by cash. So the appraisal system is all messed up. It's probably been messed up for eons. I think that's kind of like a personal thing. If you don't like your appraisal, you need to protest it. I think everybody needs to send a protest in. And then I think maybe then something could be done if they're overwhelmed with protest at the appraisal district.
Very good. Did you answer that one? Yes. You did. Okay, I think we're winding down, right? Maybe a couple more questions. And so I really wanted to end, and Michael actually, I know this is one of his questions, but what question have we forgotten? What's the question that you were hoping that we would ask, or that you want to cover, that we don't want you to go out of here and think, God, I wish they would have asked me that question. I didn't get to say. So what's that burning question? What do you want your constituents to know about you beyond the questions that our members and readers have put together? Why you? Why you?
My turn?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, my first, it's not a question, but it's a statement. Are you registered to vote? If you're not, you need to get registered to vote now, because early voting starts October 13th. And I'm not sure, but I think you have to have your voter registration card in a month ahead of time, but do it now. You can go down to the courthouse and get a voter registration card. I think they have them at the post office also. Or if you contact me, I'll bring you one, and I can register you. I'm a voter registrar deputy. Okay, about me, I want this job. I'll work hard for you. I'll work my heart out for you. I'll be available. I will go to the source. If I don't know the answer, I'll find the answer. I'm in it to win it, and my name is Pam Bass. I'm running for District 2 City Council. I'm young enough to do the job and old enough to do it right. And I would appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Well, that's a great philosophical question in the early afternoon. I think some questions I was expecting to see, more COVID related. I mean, obviously that's a big issue. I mean, how many candidates use the term COVID, coronavirus, in the last forum that we had from the chamber? I think I mentioned it maybe once. So I was thinking more, how would you handle the COVID in your community? You know, would you support these restrictions? Would you support this mask order? Would you support, you know, would you have supported closing the beaches back then? You know, and I thought it was, you know, I was expecting a little more coronavirus, which, to answer all of those, here's my stance on it. I coach baseball. I teach freshman U.S. history. I had a couple hours of biology in college, and I'm going to listen to the experts. The Galveston County Health District, I think, has done an excellent job in handling this. I'm going to pay attention to their advisories. I'm going to pay attention to their regulations, to what they have. I think that's crucial. Going back to where we say elected officials, our number one job is to protect our people, you know, protect our constituents. And for me, I'm going to take as much guidance from our stakeholders in our health community, you know, from the health district, from UTMB. You know, do we need to extend this mask order, or do we need to do these things to make the island safer? Because Galveston is going to be dealing with COVID way more than pick a random town out in East Texas. We have interstate traffic, we have, you know, inter-county traffic, we have international traffic. We're going to see it in our community, I think, way more than just your random rural town out in Texas. You know, so I think, how are we going to deal with that for hopefully not long to come, but who knows? You know, we don't really have an end date in sight with all this, but going back to that, where do we want to find that acceptable level of risk, you know, if it is going to be here forever? You know, if it is, well, just like the flu or just like any other virus in our community, how do we handle that acceptable risk? You know, it's going to be here, so what are the numbers are we looking at? Can we deal with 20 cases a day with the county, or do we want 300 a day? Sorry, I ran out of time.
Very good. Michael, anything else? Have we?
I think we've about covered it.
I think we've covered it, and thank you so much. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for being willing to give the most precious gift, and that's your time for this phenomenal city that we live in. We appreciated you before, and we appreciate your thoughts and your ideas and your unselfishness. And thank you all for watching. Don't go too far. We're going to take a 15-minute break. We'll be coming back live for District 3. So thank you for joining us. Great point about if you're not registered to vote, get out there, register to vote, and we hope that you'll review all of these videos throughout the day. And it's more important than ever to get it right in this city. So thank you so much. Thank you, Michael. We'll see you in 15 minutes.
Stay tuned.
Stay
Thank
tuned.
y'all. Thank you.